Welcome to the Art of Marketing Operations, a Taylor podcast. I'm Glenn Bottomley, and today my guest is Pedrum Khosravi, Global Director of Marketing Operations at Convera, a financial technology and services company that brings people, technology, and commerce together with every payment, helping companies of all sizes navigate the future of global commerce. Thanks for joining us today, Pedrum.
Thanks, Glenn. So happy to be here.
Well, to kick off here, I know that you are passionate about the ideas of upskilling and upscaling and how they work together for marketing operations teams. So, can you first define both of those concepts and share how they relate to one another?
Yeah, absolutely. So upskilling to me is essentially taking any team and then making them more efficient at what they do. So that's just essentially allowing them to be more successful through training them in education and their own work experiences to grow within their skill set. And then upscaling is then taking those newly learned or refined skills and then being able to become more productive and a force multiplier with that. So
Hmm.
with how they relate, to me, upskilling really comes down to three types of skills, right? So most people within marketing operations usually have their technical skills. So that's within their marketing automation platform, or SEO or website, and in like analytics. And people tend to focus there. But just as important are the soft skills, which are like learning to negotiate, handling conflict, managing stakeholder expectations, really any type of activity where you're interacting with others really frequently. But then the third one is really functional skills. So this is one where I think people often miss out on, and that's knowing how to analyze data and not cherry picking, and also complex and strategic problem solving,
Hmm.
as well as program management. So learning those foundational skills from a functional perspective and applying them across the board, then takes that you can take that and put that into practice to then upscale the team. So really what it comes down to is taking those skills, making sure there's a framework to approach it, and then driving productivity. Marketing operations is often the center of excellence and helps drive other core marketing functions. So it's really just about taking those skills and applying them in real life and becoming a force multiplier, where instead of the productivity that you were having before and the efficiency that you're having before, you take those skills and then drive them to have even a larger impact in the organization.
I see. And so, how do you feel that a marketing operations leader can best prepare their teams through upskilling to yield results?
Yeah, so I think it first comes down to understanding the skill sets of the team, right? So it's just like as any leader should do, it's knowing where does your team land within those three key areas. How strong are they with their technology skills? Do they need to learn other skills within that to improve automation? Knowing where they're at with the soft skills, do they need coaching to learn how to handle stakeholders better, as well as functional skills? And I think functional is often the one that gets missed the most, because a lot of what it comes down to is like a lot of marketing operations for me is about program management. So setting the rigor in place, managing teams and expectations, and having the attention to detail. Further, it's also understanding the business problems and making sure you put the people in the right roles to allow them to succeed. And
Gotcha.
then when we
So,
get, go ahead.
go right ahead.
So say when we get to then upscaling, it's then taking those like that level set of where the team is, and then making sure that you're putting in place check-ins, frameworks, and as well as sessions to teach them how to do those skills, give them opportunities to learn those skills, and then ensuring that you're seeing the results by making sure you recognize when they've accomplished something that they previously didn't have a great skill on.
Mhm. So, from an upskilling perspective, then doing some sort of like a departmental health assessment, skills assessment, etc., that can give you a baseline knowledge of your team, and then providing them the learning and the exposure to strengthen their any weaknesses that may be on the team or areas for growth. Have you found there to be any danger to focus before that upskilling is in place to jump to upscaling? Do you feel that it's sequential in nature?
I think it's actually more iterative in nature because oftentimes, individuals have skill sets that are stronger than others in specific areas. So you can see, upscaling and see increases in productivity right away by making sure that they focus on the areas that they're already strong in. So let's say, take for example, they're really, really solid technically, really understand marketing automation platforms and can implement things to like dynamic content, etc., to really reduce the strain when it comes to development. But aside from that, it's you do absolutely need to do a level set and assessment, because if you don't do
Mhm.
that and don't actually have the context, you'll be asking people to do things that they're not necessarily prepared for, and then you're not setting them up for success.
Yeah, yeah, and then it could lead to retention issues, or or other issues within the team. So, in your experience, then, obviously, you've coached probably lots of different teams. What's been some of the experiences that you've learned and lessons you've learned along the way as to how you best drive business results, depending on whatever level the team is at from a skill perspective, or how scalable your activities are right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because every experience I've had has been completely different. Every team that I've had has been at a different place, and honestly, every marketing operations or operations teams in general are completely different with how they, with the nature of how they do things. So, from my experience, it's actually very individualistic. So it's at the team level, understanding like what are the core requirements, but then also at the individual level, you know how are they performing? What can I do to help them grow and succeed and drive business results? So it's setting those individual goals and then understanding what could they use to help get them to the next level. What are they really interested in? Would they like to understand more of how to actually like manage a program? And or do they want to learn how to like look at marketing from an ROI and budgeting perspective, and then giving them the opportunity to do so.
Hmm.
And then really it's just about putting them in the right place to succeed. I've been fortunate enough where I have really strong teams where they're very self-sufficient, so it's just making sure that I give them the ability to showcase that, and then work with them individually to say, okay, at first, if it's a new skill, being pretty hands-on if I can coach them. Otherwise, getting them the right resources to do it, and then allowing them to drive and showcase those results.
I see your point. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier that oftentimes marketing teams are centers of excellence, and I know from our previous conversation that you believe that marketing teams, marketing operations teams, should run like centers of excellence as internal consultants or as internal agencies within their businesses. So, why do you believe that that's the best practice for marketing operations teams today?
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting take, and the way I see it, it's not so much that they're actually acting as consultants or have that type of a position, but it really comes down to the framework and the mindset. So, as I was alluding to earlier, like a lot of operations functions are different. So when you move to a new organization or start a new company, the way they do things is completely different. So oftentimes, as to be really skilled at marketing operations, you have to be able to dig under the hood, understand the business, understand the complexity within the technology and the martech platforms, to be able to drive business problems. For marketing operations teams to be really successful at upscaling, they have to be just as good as the business stakeholders in understanding the business, the processes, etc., and being able to coach, advise, and strategize with them. So in that
Mhm.
sense, that's where it's the same as consulting, where every situation is different. I don't anticipate that when people come into the role that they know exactly how to solve this specific problem, but it's understanding how can I think about this problem differently to get a result that I'm not used to, that the team is not used to seeing.
Mhm. Well, and I think to your point, I think the more that the marketing team can show up in support of the business and have just as much understanding of the intricacies of the business, etc. It builds trust and it builds partnership between marketing and the other functional areas, maybe a revenue department, a sales department, etc. And so I think having that mindset to what you're saying, whether it's in actuality a separate department or a true center of excellence, what have you. But I think what I'm hearing from you is take the mindset of being a consultant and understanding the business, making recommendations, partnering together, and you get better business results. Is that sort of your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's what it really comes down to. When I think about upskilling the team, a lot of the times it's training those skills of like how to really solve complex problems, or think outside of the box or more strategically when you're even looking at something that's super tactical. Like I'm going to set up a new like email program for lead nurture, and about like how can we drive different results and actually see an ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from that perspective, it's really about the mindset. Now, that being said, though, I do think from like center of excellence perspective, running it like an agency or internal consultancy makes sense when then you're actually looking at your business as usual activities. So that way you can actually manage and measure the productivity of the team to
Mm-hmm.
showcase, their results, because they're often hid behind, marketing operations results are often hid behind the performance of um, other teams, campaigns, etc. Because it's all the inputs to, really their outputs.
Yeah. And so in other words, the actual operational flow, the way that the work actually goes through the system, having that sort of mindset improves that as well, not just the results, but the actual flow of work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen that several times now with various teams by implementing these kind of like best practice frameworks for like program management, or even like how to handle different like a continuous load of tasks as they come in, just like you would with any
Hmm.
agency. Setting an efficient and dedicated process to that, and making sure that that's outlined to the stakeholders, and you follow that. That absolutely produces an increase in efficiency and productivity, as well as visibility for the team. Because
Hmm.
um, you know, for an individual to really showcase, is for the team to really upscale and upskill. You have to be able to show what are the results that they're producing and how are they producing it as a force multiplier.
Hmm. I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, there's marketing teams everywhere are being pressured to deliver more with less. And I know that this is something that you've spoken about in the past. So, what is the what are some of the ways that you like to do that as a marketing leader? How do you make that a reality to actually do more with your marketing team with less? Whether that less is less funding, less resources, or more efficient use of those resources. What's been your sort of key approach?
Yeah, I think it always starts with people first, as my approach, because often when we think about doing more with less, our minds tend to go to technology and automation. How can I automate this process so I can do more of something else? But that isn't always the right approach, because not everyone has thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on marketing technology that allows them to do that automation. And even when you do that automation like that, it still requires people to manage it.
Hmm.
So as a result, it really always comes back to having a people led motion. And so within that, it's really thinking about how can I get my team to be able to focus on the things that are going to drive the most value to the organization, and giving them the skills to be able to approach that, to be more successful.
Yeah, I could see that because I think you're spot on with this notion of, if you are only focused on the result or only focused on, a request from executive leadership to I've got to get more, but I'm not going to invest anything there. If you can focus on the people first, and to your point, back to the original start of the conversation about upskilling, your team is going to be more flexible, more skilled, more able to squeeze more out of the technology that you've got. And and certainly the operational processes that you have as well. Have you found, though, that in doing that, with that focus on people, has that ever conflicted with work that you do on the tech side? Because if you think about so many marketing operations teams today, I mean, their MarTech stacks are, 50, 60, 100 different platforms, all tightly integrated to generate results. So, what's been your sort of approach to deal with that when, with a focus on people? How do you then reconcile that with maybe a MarTech stack that's unwieldy, or where do you try to pick out other things to reduce costs and increase efficiencies in other places?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, it really comes down to two things. So when I think of a people-led motion, it's not just about the coaching them in skills, but it's really doing that in practice. So one of the things that we often focus on, and absolutely, Martech can be bloated. We can have hundreds of tools, not knowing what they're doing, and some of them could be legacy. So through that process of upskilling and upscaling, part of that is also looking at the tech side of it. Is there things that we can do to reduce? Is there new functionality that we have that we can then deprecate a specific product, or do we even need something there that's just been like a software they've been using that really isn't driving value? So a lot of Martech does provide innovation and benefits, but it's not always the right solution when you need to balance the amount of time it takes to manage that technology compared to if it does the one thing really really well, but it could be done it still would achieve the result and you still get the outcome by doing it a different way that's much more cost effective. Then that makes way more sense to do it that way, even if it takes a little bit more time, because it's really looking at the ROI of the tool. And it comes back to the people led motion by allowing the team, like if they don't have that functional skill, somebody's got to be able to analyze that and look at it that way, and have that larger strategic vision. So still, is driven from that process.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Let's switch gears a bit. So we talk a lot about physical marketing and physical marketing impressions and how those work together with digital marketing and digital marketing impressions. And our position is that it is crucial to success to have those work together. So can you share a bit about your experience about how those two, physical and digital, how they work together and how uh, marketing operations teams need to look at those two?
Yeah, absolutely. So I 100% agree. Like, just because it's a digital age doesn't mean that we have to shy away from physical marketing, especially, with with what's happening in the past few years. Every company has gone to digital. So it's, how do you stand out, and often might be going back to physical marketing. I think a good use case too is that it also showcases the brand and the impact that has down funnel. For Convera, we just relaunched our website, and we recently went to Money 2020, which just occurred last week. We were a sponsor at the event, and we had this massive booth within the expo that had lots of branding, signage, different charging stations, etc.
Marketing
Lots of different like
materials.
physical,
Mhm.
exactly, physical marketing assets to really showcase the brand and make it front and center for the people that are there. And as a result of that, is really a complete success. Having that messaging and branding opportunity um, really showcased the value of the brand, because even with physical marketing, you can add things like a QR code to it to um, drive direction to like a landing page or a sign up form subscription.
Yeah.
We just had the results. The results are about to come out, so unfortunately, I don't have much to share. But I know from anecdotally from when we were at the event, we've heard lots of really good feedback of the event being managed with that physical marketing really drove a lot of the key conversations, and even those physical marketing with codes and etc. Drove to potential lead conversion and acquisition efforts.
Yeah, yeah, and the ability for that connection, that reinforcement of the brand, I think it's another touch point. It's another tactile and or visual representation of what the brand value is and that what you're trying to convey. So I'm excited to hear about the success that you've had at the trade show, and also hearing how you are blending the physical and those marketing impressions with the digital. I think that's very, very exciting.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap up today's episode, though, what is the main takeaway that you want to share to help understand the challenges facing marketing operations executives today?
Yeah, I think the main takeaway that I want people to understand is that, we're often being asked to do more with less, whether that's less budget, less people, etc. So it's really, we have to take a different approach as to how we can achieve those same results without doing the same thing over and over again. So, for us to really drive that result, to do more with less, we really have to focus on our people, and the output that they're having, so that as marketing operations teams, we can be that force multiplier to drive the results of marketing teams and companies' revenue growth overall.
Excellent observation. Well, that wraps up this episode of The Art of Marketing Operations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pedrum.
Thank you. So really excited, Glenn.
Well, until next time, stay safe and take care.
Thank you for listening to The Art of Marketing Operations, brought to you by Taylor. Don't forget to hit subscribe in your favorite podcast player. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and share. Until next time.